Are we recording? Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, okay.
Why do you have naked pictures?
So we're giving examples of like people who've never eaten meat in their life.
I see.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I was thinking that was something else,
Yeah,
honestly.
no. It could be, but it's not. So what do you think about the sign that says you should be vegan? Discuss.
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I agree that veganism is good. Everybody should be vegan. But it seems almost impossible to change that.
So are you vegan?
No.
Okay, interesting. So when you say veganism is good and you think people should be vegan, why aren't you vegan?
Well, probably the same reason as everyone else who has read about this stuff, I guess. At least a little bit. And that I'm just lazy. And that it's like the impulse to eat meat, you know? When you're like in a restaurant, something like that. I just cannot handle it. I just want some meat.
Do you think that if you were in their position, like being put into slaughterhouses and being exploited, and you heard the oppressor saying, "Well, I'm just lazy," what would you say to those people, or how would you feel about those people?
I would say them, but like that has happened throughout history. It's a common human thing.
Okay, but it's like, so you're talking about bad things have happened in history. Do you agree with that bad stuff that's happening?
Absolutely not. But I'm only human, and I just can't help myself.
Okay, so what kind of things are you referring to in history?
Well, if you want an example, let's say slaves. That was like commonly accepted.
Okay, so
in America.
Yeah, that's a good example. So if we take the example of slavery, and the slave master said, "I'm just human, like I can't be held accountable," is that a logical justification?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, so once you realize that that's not a logical justification, do you think that you then have to start changing?
Absolutely, I have the reason to start changing, but it's more about the will to start changing, you know, like I guess determination to not eat meat. That's kind of hard to me, at least.
Do you think it's harder for you to go vegan, or do you think it's harder for the animals when you're not vegan?
Well, it's harder for the animals, of course.
Okay, so do you agree if somebody was kicking a dog right now in front of us, would you agree with what they're doing, or would you support it?
I would not agree, but I probably wouldn't do anything. I would probably just watch.
Okay, but there's a difference, right, between when we're talking about veganism, it's not about saving animals, right? We're just talking about not participating, right? So in the example of the kicking the dog, right, the vegan wouldn't necessarily be somebody who's jumping in to save the dog. They would just be somebody who's not kicking the dog. So the same as what you're talking about.
Well,
right?
I don't think that's a fair comparison, because in this case, like eating meat is the norm, is what you see everybody else doing, and that kind of makes you want to do it as well.
I mean, in the same way as slavery, right? That would be an appeal to tradition fallacy. So do you know what that means?
Yes, I know.
Yeah, so there's a logical fallacy, right? To say that, because everyone is doing... Like, if everyone in your class was bullying someone...
Let me put it this way. So, I agree with everything you say. I think you're absolutely correct. But I just don't have the determination to change. So what can I do?
I mean, do you think that you know what animals go through?
No, I don't.
Okay, but if you don't know what animals are going through, how would you know enough to make a decision on that topic?
I mean, I sort of know what they're going through.
Can I show you some?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to have a look. Do you know in the egg industry what happens to the male chicks?
No, not really, but probably something very bad.
Okay, well, you know the basics, right? That the girls are the ones that lay eggs, right?
Yes.
Right, so we have different types of chickens. We have chickens that we use for meat, which are called broilers, and then we have the egg-laying breeds. So they're selectively bred for different purposes, right? So the broilers, you've probably seen in the news, like pictures of them growing very fast, like killed in 6 weeks. So they're so big, they can't stand up. Those are the ones used for meat. And then the egg-laying breeds, they're basically bred to lay loads of eggs. So this is basically how the egg industry works around the world. So first, of course, we have to hatch the fertilized eggs. And these will be the males. And the reason that they are on a conveyor belt right now is because they've been separated from their sisters. So on their first day of life, they will be separated from the girls, and then they will be macerated. So it's a bit like if you have like a food processor and you put the live chick in and you press the on button. Would you do that?
No.
Okay, but if you pay for eggs, you're basically doing that as anyway. So how does that make you think? Do you think there's a lack of consistency?
Yeah, of course there is. It's just that I don't know. I think it's hard to change. Like how you can show me all this, but like the point is, I agree with you. But
I mean, why?
no,
Interesting. You say it's hard to change. Like, are you somebody who, when you get information, you would use that information to maybe affect your behaviors or rethink about things? I mean, why you're at university, for example? Why are you here?
Because I like to think, I like to see other people's point of view, not necessarily to change. Just like
Have you ever changed your opinion on anything?
I have.
Okay, so what does it take for you to change your opinion on something?
I don't know. It's hard to say.
Or give me an example.
I can't think of anything I have changed.
I mean,
my
imagine
opinion
being
on.
that chick. Do you think this is a joke?
No. No, I don't
I mean,
think
you
so.
said to me that you wouldn't approve of somebody kicking a dog. Why do you think that that's funny to see a chick being ground up alive?
I don't think it's funny. I just like when I get nervous, I start laughing.
Okay, but why do you think it's okay? Because you're paying for it, right?
I don't think it's okay. It's just I find it hard to change. To be honest, I don't eat a lot of eggs. Like I don't buy eggs really. I just eat them like in a restaurant.
Yeah,
with a
but
nice meal.
come on, that's supply and demand. You know how this works, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't matter whether you are like going out to the supermarket or you buy here in the dining room. It's the same. It's supporting it, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we should even consume eggs, even if somebody else, has cooked a meal. Like I wouldn't consume eggs because the same way as you probably wouldn't support like products of human abuse or dog abuse, right? Do you think that you see dogs and pigs the same?
Not really.
And
Then again, it's more of a person, not personal, I guess, more of an affectionate reason that I just see dogs a lot more, so I feel more compassion for them rather than for pigs.
so you do feel compassion for animals?
Yeah, for certain animals that I see a
Okay,
lot, I guess.
so if you saw somebody beating a dog with a baseball bat here, what would you do?
Wouldn't do anything.
So if you saw somebody beating a human, what would you do?
Well, then I would step in to save him, I guess.
Okay, so what's the morally relevant difference between the dog and the human? Which means you would step in
Well,
for the human, but you wouldn't step in for the dog.
I just like humans better, I guess, or I just think more highly of humans. I don't know.
But I'm asking you, what's the reason? What's the morally relevant difference?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think a lot about this stuff.
Yeah, maybe you need to think more about it.
Yeah, probably, but
Yeah, because to me it seems like you think this is funny, and you're like you're contributing
it's
to.
funny.
But you're saying you don't need to think about it. Like, oh, I don't think about it. Like, I think you should think about
I
it.
usually just act on impulse when it comes to most things. I think a lot of people do that.
I think there's a difference between acting in impulse when you don't have victims, but it's okay to act on impulse. Like if we skip down the street, or you want to paint your room purple, or whatever it is, that's all fine. There's nobody being harmed, right? But when you say you're acting on impulse, if someone's come round here like shooting people and they said, "Oh, I'm just acting on impulse," do you think that's a good excuse?
No, of course not.
Okay, so do you understand that your choices have victims? You're making violent choices that have victims.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, so apart from, like, I don't know, what's the morally relevant difference, which means that you don't accept these things happening to humans, but you do accept it happening to dogs or pigs?
Well, to me it's more of a psychological thing. I just hang around with humans more. I just see humans more, so I feel more empathy rather than for dogs.
What would you say to the slave owner who says, "Oh, I just hang around white people more, so I just have more empathy with white people, and I don't care about black people, so it's okay to oppress them"? I mean, because you're basically making the arguments of a slave owner.
Making that argument, I know.
Yeah. So are you against oppression? Do you think that people shouldn't be, or individuals shouldn't be oppressed based on gender, sexuality, species?
Of course I'm against it, yes.
But when you say you're against something, it's also important that your behaviors are aligned with that. Otherwise, it's just paying lip service, right? So if there was somebody who was violently homophobic and they said, "Yes, I'm against it," but they still went out and they were violently homophobic, you would say, "But you're not really against it, right? You're just saying you are."
Yeah, I guess.
So do you think you could go vegan then?
Absolutely could, but I just think it's hard. How I'm gonna avoid it?
What's hard?
I avoid eating meat, the satisfaction of eating meat, the taste, missing that sort of satisfaction. And
I mean, there's satisfaction from other things we can think of, like the slave owner might say, oh, I really like having free labor. It's so nice. Like, I have more time with my family and I don't have to pay people. It's not a justification. Saying the oppressors get the benefit is never a justification for violent
I'm not
oppression.
trying to justify anything. I'm just trying to explain how I think, I guess.
Well, an explanation is kind of like a justification, right? So I'm being kind of hard on you because I think that we should be, and I think that throughout history, the way society has changed is when we hold people accountable, like yourself or like the slave owner, right? To say that, no, it's not an excuse just to say, oh, I don't think about it. That's the luxury of the oppressor, right? To say, oh, I don't think about it. You're not the one who's being forced into a slaughterhouse, so you don't have to think about it.
That's fair. Yeah. But the biggest factor for me to go vegan is just advice for how I could avoid the meat when I'm meeting with a friend or I'm meeting at somebody's house. Well,
I think it's not.
How should I avoid the impulse? I
think to avoid the impulse is to look into what happens to the individuals. I think at the moment, like, you didn't even know what happens to the males,
that's
right?
True. That's true.
So it's very easy for us to like not think about the victims if we don't have visibility of what's happening to them. And I think also just from a logical perspective, you can think that there is no requirement for us to consume dog milk or cat milk or rat milk or cow's milk. We've been indoctrinated, especially in Sweden. I think you're probably aware, but like in Swedish schools, for example, Arla are allowed to advertise to children in the school system, and advertising is not allowed in Swedish schools except for Arla, right? So there's a lot of aggressive lobbying in order to indoctrinate people from a young age into thinking that you need the calcium that comes from cow's milk, when in fact we can get calcium from lots of different sources.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Well, sesame seeds, soybeans, kale, nuts, spinach, okra, broccoli, dried figs, and there's many more.
All right. I can do without milk. Like milk is easy to take away.
And yogurts and cheese.
Yeah, I think all that's fairly easy because there are like very similar alternatives, I would say.
Yeah,
right,
okay.
Except oatmeal. But when it comes to specifically meat, it's the harder to me.
I mean, when you say similar alternatives, the thing that comes into my mind is it's a bit like the slave owner who says, I'm only going to give up my slaves when you can give me an AI robot that gives me exactly, the technology is so good that I get exactly the same free labor output. Only when I can match 100%, then I will agree to not have slaves. And I kind of think like, sorry, it's an entitlement issue, right? You feel, just like the slave owner does, entitled to the bodies of others, right? And the reason that the slave owner is saying, like, I'm not going to give up my slaves until you give me like for like exact equivalent is because of that entitlement.
I think it's a bit different because I want to quit. It's simply that it's hard. It's hard to...
It's hard to have be chained up by your ankles and have a knife in your throat.
Yeah, that's harder.
Yes,
of course.
Right. So again, what I'm trying to stress to you is we don't need to wait for it. If you say that I'll only change when we get exact alternatives, that have to be so easy that there's nothing I need to do. I just know bare minimum for me. That speaks of entitlement. That you still feel entitled to the bodies of others. What I'm trying to stress to you is you're not entitled to their bodies the same way as the slave owner is not entitled to the bodies of those slaves.
I agree. Like from a moral perspective, you absolutely have a point. It's simply that the habits is hard to.
I mean, I'm here to talk about a moral perspective, right?
Yes, but
so I don't think.
I want to change.
I think shitty habits are not a justification.
Yes, I'm not trying to justify anything, but I want to change. But the habit of eating meat is so hard. It's so
okay.
inbuilt.
But I've given you some resources. I've given you some education on how these things work, right? And now it's over to you, right? I can't like hold your hand through the whole thing and show you everything. So there's a documentary I recommend you watch called Dominion. It's free online. Do you think you'd be willing to watch that?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, well, I hope when you watch that, then you will agree to give up. And it's not just about food, by the way. It's also about leather, about using animals in zoos. So veganism is not just a diet, it's a philosophy where you reject the oppression, the exploitation of other animals.
It's true, but what if I get like a gift in leather? So
I mean, how would you? I think treat it like you would get if you got a gift. If somebody gave you like a baby's skull as a gift, what would you say? You'd say, "No, I'm okay, thank you," right? So once you reject the oppression of other animals, you have to. It's not just about buying. Of course, it's more normalized in our society than it would be to give like the body parts of humans as a gift. We wouldn't do that, right? But I do think if you're thinking like you're obviously an intelligent person at university, you have to be logically consistent, right? And so you might use nice ways to put it, but the message is still the same, is that no, I don't support the violent oppression of others, right?
Yeah.
And like, thanks so much for your gift. It's really nice of you to think of me, but actually I can't accept this. However, next time if you want to buy me a gift, you could donate to charity or do something else.
I'll try to quit eating meat and so on. You changed my mind. I'm gonna try again. Yes,
And watch Dominion.
I will definitely watch Dominion.